Hi, this is Dave Shook. Welcome to the fourth in our series of videos. Here we're going to be talking about how you manage from the cloud the secure acquisition of data from on-premise operational technology systems. So here we have our diagram. We've got a couple of new objects here. What we're dealing with here is the fact that we want to, from the cloud or from a computer at some arbitrary location, possibly connecting by way of the internet, we want to be able to configure this data acquisition client to collect data from the historian, alarm historian, or direct from a control system. And we need to be able to do that securely. So how do we do this? First of all, we remember that all of the communications are initiated outbound from the client to the relay point, and then from the relay point up to the cloud. These are secured in transit, and both ends are authenticated against each other so that we know that this data acquisition client is talking to who it needs to, and the IoT hub knows who's talking to it. So the most convenient way for us to manage the data acquisition is to leverage that communication channel that's transmitting data. And Microsoft has allowed us to do this using the IoT Hub cloud to device messaging, which we refer to in this context as our control plane. So we will be sending control commands down. It's still an outward bound connection, but once that connection has been made, the IoT hub can send information down to the data acquisition client. And if the commands make sense to the data acquisition client, then it will implement them and it'll add more tags or retrieve more history or stop acquiring data, whatever the command happens to be. So that is nice and secure. What we now need to worry about is how a user can interact with that system and we can know that they are who they are. So first of all, what we need in Azure is this data acquisition management application. Think of it as a website. And this user needs to be able to talk to that. That then sends commands to the IoT hub. The IoT hub then sends the commands back down over the same channel using the control plane. So now it's a question of how do we authenticate this user to make sure that the person who is making these commands is allowed to do so. So first of all, Microsoft gives us a lot of help here with Active Directory and Azure Active Directory. That makes it possible for an Active Directory authenticated user to be mapped directly into Azure. Secondly, with multi-factor authentication, which is where you have to respond to a text or an authentication application, that makes it much less likely that a user can be spoofed by a malicious actor. So these tools make it really very unlikely that anyone other than an authenticated user can do this. But we still need to have end-to-end security of the communication channel. So that's where we get into things like a VPN connecting this computer to the Azure endpoint. And in fact, practically speaking, this whole system should be within a VPN anyway, because it's a logical extension of the DMZ. Uh, a user can do things here that can directly affect the DMZ, and so this should be secured about as tightly as the DMZ is itself. So what we do is we use some network best practices with Azure to make it so that the user here, and we can even go so far as to put a computer certificate, put a certificate on the computer so that the computer itself is authenticated. And in that case, what we know that it's that user, we know that it's that computer, we know there's no man in the middle, and therefore it is valid and secure for us to allow that user to perform the administrative actions that they should be permitted to do. And then the communication through the IoT Hub control plane give us secure communication down to the data acquisition client. That's it. Pretty straightforward. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you look forward to the next one. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at uptakefusion.com. Take care.